The Galactic Council's war room buzzed with nervous energy as holographic displays showed the latest battle reports from across 17 star systems. Admiral Zeph Carr of the Crystalline Hegemony adjusted his forearms in a gesture of dismissal as he reviewed Earth's defensive capabilities for the third time that cycle. Primitive mammals, he chittered to his assembled fleet commanders, his mandibles clicking in what passed for laughter among his species. Look at their pathetic defensive positions: ice fields, frozen wastelands, and scattered military installations buried in snow. What kind of strategic thinking is this? Commander Velthanis of the Void Serpent Legion nodded her scaled head in agreement. Our thermal scans show most of their northern territories are completely uninhabitable. Temperatures that would kill most civilized species. They've literally built their defenses in places where life cannot exist. The massive viewing screen displayed Earth's polar regions in stark detail. Endless expanses of white stretched across continents, broken only by jagged mountains and the occasional research station. To the assembled alien commanders, it looked like a world that had given up, hiding its people in the most desolate corners of their planet. Intelligence reports indicate they've moved significant populations to these frozen zones, reported the insectoid General Crixtall, his compound eyes glittering with amusement. Apparently, they call it tactical relocation. We call it suicide by climate. The assembled commanders erupted in various forms of alien laughter. Some clicked, others hissed, and a few produced sounds that would have been painful to human ears. The idea that Earth's military strategy involved hiding in frozen wastelands struck them as the desperate act of a dying civilization. Admiral Zeph Carr activated a tactical overlay showing proposed invasion routes. Our atmospheric processors can clear these ice fields in days. Once we melt their precious frozen fortresses, their scattered defenders will be exposed and helpless. The thermal shock alone should eliminate most resistance. What the Galactic Council's intelligence networks had failed to understand was that humans didn't just survive in extreme cold, they thrived in it. For thousands of years, human civilizations had carved out existence in the harshest environments their planet could offer. From the Inuit peoples of the Arctic to the research teams of Antarctica, humanity had learned to turn frozen hellscapes into strategic advantages. Deep beneath the Siberian ice fields, Commander Sarah Chen moved through corridors that had been carved from solid permafrost decades earlier. The underground facility stretched for miles in every direction, a hidden city that existed in temperatures that would kill most alien species within minutes. Her breath created small clouds in the sub-zero air, but her movements remained fluid and precise. "Status report," she requested as she entered the main operations center, where hundreds of technicians worked at stations that seemed to grow directly from the ice walls. Lieutenant Morrison looked up from his console, his face ruddy from the cold, but his eyes sharp with focus. "All defensive systems are online, Commander. The aliens' advanced scouts have been probing our outer perimeters for the past 6 hours. They seem confused by our positioning." Chen smiled grimly as she studied the tactical displays. The enemy ships maintained high altitudes, clearly struggling with Earth's extreme weather patterns. Their advanced technology meant nothing when dealing with conditions they had never encountered in their sterile, climate-controlled worlds. "Have they attempted any ground reconnaissance?" she asked, watching as another alien probe was torn apart by winds that regularly exceeded 200 kilometers per hour. "3 landing attempts, all failures," reported Sergeant Rodriguez from the communications station. "Atmospheric interference is playing havoc with their systems. Their equipment starts malfunctioning the moment it encounters our weather patterns." The irony wasn't lost on Chen. The same conditions that made Earth's polar regions nearly uninhabitable for most humans had become their greatest defensive asset. While the Galactic Armies possessed technology that could level entire cities, they had no experience with environments where metal became brittle, Electronics failed, and atmospheric conditions changed without warning. Through the facility's observation ports, Chen could see the aurora borealis painting the sky in brilliant greens and blues. To the alien commanders orbiting above, it probably looked like some kind of atmospheric weapon. In reality, it was just another day in the Arctic, where phenomena that seemed magical to off-worlders were simply part of the natural order. Commander, we're receiving multiple communications from other polar installations, Morrison reported. Greenland base reports successful integration of their ice crawler squadrons. Antarctic Command confirms their under-ice submarine fleet is fully operational. The Alps installation has activated their avalanche defense systems. Chen nodded as she processed the information. While the galaxy's military minds had been focusing on space-based warfare and planetary bombardment tactics, humanity had been perfecting the art of terrestrial combat in conditions that most species couldn't even survive. Their enemies had mastered the stars, but they had never learned to master winter. "What about our special operative?" Chen asked, her voice dropping to a more serious tone. Morrison's expression grew grave. Echo has been deployed to the Himalayas sector. Last communication was 18 hours ago. All we know is the mission parameters haven't changed. The mere mention of Echo sent a subtle chill through the operations center that had nothing to do with the ambient temperature. Even among Earth's elite winter warfare specialists, Echo was something different entirely. A soldier who had volunteered for modifications that pushed human endurance beyond anything previously thought possible. While the alien fleets prepared their thermal bombardment systems and atmospheric processors, confident that melting Earth's ice fields would expose humanity's weakness, they remained completely unaware of what actually lived and thrived in those frozen wastelands. Commander Chen turned back to her displays, watching as another wave of alien reconnaissance drones failed catastrophically in Earth's upper atmosphere. The enemy's technology, designed for the controlled environments of space and temperate worlds, was proving remarkably fragile when confronted with the raw, chaotic power of Earth's polar weather systems. "Let them come," she said quietly, her words carried by the recycled air through corridors carved from ice that was older than human civilization. "They want to see what humans have built in the cold. We'll show them exactly what that means." Above them, the alien fleets continued their preparations, completely confident in their technological superiority. They had studied human cities, analyzed human technology, and calculated human military capabilities based on temperate zone installations. But they had never tried to understand how a species evolved to survive in environments that killed everything else. The first phase of the invasion would begin at dawn, when the alien atmospheric processors would start their work of melting Earth's polar defenses. What they would discover beneath the ice would redefine their understanding of human warfare, human endurance, and human determination. In the depths of the facility, alarms began to sound as orbital bombardment systems came online high above. The war for Earth was about to begin, and humanity's enemies had chosen to fight in the one environment where humans had spent millennia learning to become apex predators. The ice fields that looked like humanity's weakness to galactic military strategists were about to become their strongest advantage. And somewhere in the Himalayas, Echo was preparing to demonstrate exactly why humanity's most lethal operatives were forged in the crucible of Earth's most unforgiving environments. The alien atmospheric processors hummed to life at exactly 0600 hours Earth Standard Time, their massive engines designed to superheat planetary atmospheres and melt frozen surfaces within hours. Admiral Zefkar watched from his flagship's command deck as thermal readings spiked across Earth's polar regions. "Excellent progress," he reported to the Galactic Council via quantum communication. "Ice thickness is already decreasing by significant margins. We should have the humans' frozen bunkers exposed within 12 standard hours." What the Admiral couldn't see from orbit were the humans moving through their hidden cities like blood through veins. The atmospheric processing created massive temperature differentials that activated systems the aliens never knew existed. As surface ice began to melt, underground networks that had been dormant for decades suddenly came alive with activity. In the Siberian installation, Commander Chen watched her tactical displays with growing satisfaction. "Morrison, activate the thermal camouflage systems. Let them think they're winning." The facility's walls began to radiate heat in carefully controlled patterns, creating false signatures that would register as structural failures to alien sensors. To anyone monitoring from space, it would appear that the human installations were catastrophically overheating and shutting down. "Greenland reports successful deception protocols are active," Lieutenant Rodriguez announced. "Antarctic Command confirms their ice crawler squadrons have reached optimal deployment depth. The European Alpine installations are reporting ready status for Operation Snowfall." Chen smiled as she watched the aliens' thermal bombardment intensify. They were putting tremendous energy into melting surface ice, completely unaware that they were actually improving humanity's tactical position. The melted ice was flowing into carefully engineered channel systems that had been built into the landscape decades earlier, creating rushing waterways that powered human equipment while simultaneously disrupting alien ground sensor networks. "Commander, we're receiving a priority transmission from the Himalayan sector," Morrison reported, his voice tight with excitement. "It's Echo. Mission status has changed to active engagement." The operations center fell silent as Chen activated the communication array. Through layers of atmospheric interference and enemy jamming, a voice emerged that seemed to carry the weight of glacial ice. "Control, this is Echo. Enemy ground forces have established a forward base at coordinates 77 Alpha. Approximately 200 hostiles with atmospheric processing support equipment. Beginning elimination protocol." Chen's blood ran cold as she processed the information. Echo wasn't just reporting enemy positions. They were preparing to engage a force that outnumbered them 200 to 1 in conditions where most humans couldn't survive for an hour without environmental suits. "Echo, confirm your position and equipment status," she transmitted back. "Position confirmed as 8,000 meters elevation. Ambient temperature, -47 Celsius. Wind speed, 93 kilometers per hour. Equipment status, optimal. Beginning approach." High in the Himalayas, where the air was too thin for most humans to think clearly, and the cold could kill in minutes, Echo moved across terrain that looked like the surface of an alien world. But this wasn't alien terrain to them. This was home. The figure that had once been Lieutenant Marcus Reeves moved through the blizzard with inhuman grace, modified physiology, allowing them to process oxygen at altitudes where aircraft struggled to function. Genetic modifications that pushed the boundaries of human possibility had created something that was still recognizably human, but adapted to thrive in Earth's most extreme environments. Echo's enhanced vision cut through the swirling snow as they observed the alien forward base below. The crystalline beings had established their position in what they obviously considered a strategic location, a flat area protected from the worst winds, with good sight lines in multiple directions. What they hadn't realized was that they had chosen a location directly beneath a massive cornice of snow and ice that had been building for months. Echo had spent the last 18 hours carefully weakening the supporting structures, turning the aliens' defensive position into a trap. The alien base bustled with activity as creatures in environmental suits struggled to operate equipment that was never designed for Earth's conditions. Their atmospheric processors whined and sparked as ice crystals formed on essential components. Several aliens had already been evacuated after their life support systems failed in the extreme cold. Echo activated their communication array, sending a brief signal to orbital platforms that the aliens would interpret as routine atmospheric interference. In reality, it was a targeting beacon for systems that had been hidden in the mountain peaks for years. "Control, Beginning primary assault. Estimated completion time 6 minutes. What happened next would later be analyzed by alien military strategists for decades. But they would never fully understand how a single human operative had neutralized a fortified position in conditions that should have been impossible for organic life. Echo moved down the mountain face like an avalanche given human form, using the storm itself as cover, while modified muscles and enhanced reflexes allowed them to traverse terrain at speeds that defied physics. The aliens' thermal sensors, already struggling with the chaotic temperature readings from their own processing equipment, completely missed the approaching threat. The first alien guards died before they realized they were under attack. Weapons designed for use in controlled environments jammed in the sub-zero temperatures, while Echo's specially designed gear functioned flawlessly in conditions it had been created for. Alert! Alert! Base under attack! The alien communications crackled with panic as their defensive perimeter collapsed. Single attacker, moving at impossible speed, environmental suits failing. Request immediate atmospheric support. Echo moved through the base like a force of nature, using the aliens' own equipment against them. Atmospheric processors designed to melt ice were redirected to create superheated steam that instantly condensed in the frigid air, creating fog banks that provided perfect concealment while disrupting enemy sensors. Impossible! How can one organic being function in these conditions? Admiral Zefkar's voice cut across the communications frequency as reports flooded in from the surface. The answer was something the galactic military had never encountered, a species that had spent millennia adapting to environments that killed everything else, then pushed those adaptations beyond natural limits through technology and determination. Echo reached the central command structure as alien reinforcements struggled through the blizzard, their equipment failing faster than it could be repaired. With precise movements born from years of training in sub-zero conditions, they placed charges on key support structures, while alien defenders fired weapons that couldn't maintain accuracy in the chaotic wind patterns. "All units, clear the perimeter," Echo transmitted. "Avalanche protocol initiating." The charges detonated with precision timing, not to destroy the alien base directly, but to trigger the collapse they had been preparing for hours. Thousands of tons of snow and ice that had been hanging precariously above the valley came crashing down with the force of a natural disaster. The alien forward base disappeared beneath a white wall of destruction that moved faster than their escape vehicles could accelerate. Environmental suits designed for sterile conditions provided no protection against the crushing weight of an avalanche, and alien technology that could level cities was buried beneath snow that would take months to clear. Control. This is Echo. Forward base eliminated. No survivors detected. Moving to secondary objectives. In the Siberian Command Center, Commander Chen stared at her tactical display in stunned silence. In less than 6 minutes, a single operative had eliminated an enemy force that should have been able to hold their position against conventional assault for days. "Morrison, compile a report for all installations," she ordered. "Operation Snowfall is proceeding ahead of schedule. The enemy has no understanding of how to fight in our environment." Above them, the alien fleets continued their thermal bombardment, melting ice and exposing what they believed were weakened human defenses. They had no idea that every melted glacier, every collapsed ice shelf, and every altered weather pattern was being turned into a weapon against them. The beings who ruled star systems and commanded technology beyond human understanding had made a critical error. They had chosen to fight humanity in the one environment where humans had spent their entire evolutionary history learning to kill or be killed. Echo was already moving toward their next target, a shape in the storm that moved with the patient, lethal efficiency of a predator in its natural habitat. The aliens had wanted to see what humans built in the ice fields. Now they were learning what the ice fields had built in humans. The Galactic Council's emergency session convened in chaos as reports streamed in from 17 different fronts. What should have been a routine planetary subjugation had turned into a nightmare of equipment failures, environmental casualties, and incomprehensible tactical defeats. "Explain to me." Admiral Zefkar's voice cracked through the quantum communication array. "How we have lost 14 forward bases, 37 reconnaissance squadrons, and 3 entire atmospheric processing units to a species that shouldn't be able to survive in their own defensive positions." General Krickstall's compound eyes flickered nervously as he accessed the latest intelligence reports. "Sir, our ground forces are reporting equipment failure rates of 93%. The environmental conditions are beyond anything in our tactical databases. Weapons cease to function, vehicles break down, and life support systems fail within hours of deployment." "And the individual that eliminated Firebase 7? "Still active, sir. Our orbital tracking shows movement signatures across 12 different mountain peaks, but we cannot maintain sensor lock. The atmospheric interference and terrain irregularities make targeting impossible." Admiral Zefkar's mandibles clicked in frustration. His species had conquered 47 worlds using conventional tactics, but Earth was proving to be something entirely different. The humans hadn't just adapted to hostile environments, they had weaponized them. In the depths of the Antarctic installation, Commander Sarah Chen coordinated with resistance cells across the globe as humanity's true defensive strategy revealed itself. The ice fields that alien strategists had dismissed as useless terrain were actually the foundation of a defensive network that spanned continents. Greenland reports successful activation of their glacial hydroelectric systems, Lieutenant Morrison announced. "Power output is exceeding projections by 40%. The ice crawler squadrons are now fully operational across the Arctic Circle." Chen smiled as she watched the tactical display update with new information. The aliens' thermal bombardment had actually improved humanity's defensive capabilities by creating the water flow necessary to power hidden installations that had been dormant for decades. "What's the status on Operation Deep Freeze?" she asked. "All orbital defense platforms report ready status," Sergeant Rodriguez replied from his station. "The moment the enemy fleet descends to lower altitude for ground support, our mountain-based railguns will have clear targeting solutions." The alien command structure was beginning to understand that they had made a fundamental miscalculation, but they were too committed to the assault to withdraw. Pride and tactical doctrine demanded that they continue the attack, even as evidence mounted that humanity's defensive strategy was far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. High above the Karakoram range, Echo paused in their advance to observe the alien fleet's repositioning. Enhanced vision tracked the movement of ships that were dropping to lower altitudes, obviously preparing for close atmospheric support of their struggling ground forces. "Control, this is Echo. Enemy fleet moving to attack position. Recommend activation of mountain-based defense grid." "Confirmed, Echo. Defense grid powering up now. Continue with your mission." Echo resumed their movement across terrain that looked like the surface of another world, but moved with the confidence of someone who had been born to these conditions. The modifications that allowed them to function at extreme altitude and temperature had come at a cost that few humans were willing to pay, but the results spoke for themselves. Below, another alien installation struggled to establish a foothold in the Hindu Kush range. The crystalline beings had learned from their previous defeats and chosen a more defensive position, but they still didn't understand the fundamental problem with fighting humans in winter conditions. The issue wasn't just that human equipment worked better in extreme cold. It was that humans themselves became more dangerous when most other species could barely function. Echo approached the perimeter of the alien base like a natural phenomenon, moving through snowdrifts with barely a sound. The alien guards had been reinforced with additional environmental suits and heating equipment, but their movements remained sluggish and their reaction times slowed by the brutal cold. Their weapons had been modified with heating elements, but the constant power drain meant regular equipment failures. Echo struck from 3 different directions simultaneously, using the terrain and weather to create the illusion of multiple attackers. Explosive charges placed in key locations triggered controlled avalanches that isolated sections of the base from one another, while disrupted communications made coordinated defense impossible. Mayday! Mayday! We are under attack by multiple hostiles. Environmental suits failing. Equipment non-responsive. The alien communications filled with panic as their defensive perimeter collapsed once again. But this time was different. Echo wasn't just eliminating another forward base. They were sending a message that would be heard across the entire alien fleet. As the last alien defender fell, Echo activated their long-range communication array and transmitted directly to the orbital command ship, using captured alien equipment to pierce their communication barriers. Admiral Zefkar of the Crystalline Hegemony. Echo's voice carried across space with the quiet authority of someone who had just eliminated an entire military installation single-handedly. You wanted to test your forces against Earth's ice fields. You wanted to see what humans built in the cold. In the alien flagship's command center, every officer went silent as the transmission continued. You made one critical error in your calculations. You assumed the ice fields were where we hid from you. The truth is much simpler. The ice fields are where we learned to hunt. Admiral Zefkar stared at his tactical display as it updated with the destruction of yet another ground installation. A single organic being had eliminated military positions that should have been able to withstand assault by entire battalions. This is where we became what we are, Echo's transmission continued, background wind howling through the communication like the voice of winter itself. You rule the stars, Admiral, but you've never learned to rule the storm. You command technology that can reshape worlds, but you've never mastered the simple art of not dying when it gets cold. The alien command staff exchanged uncertain glances as the implications became clear. They weren't just fighting a technologically inferior species that had hidden in frozen bunkers. They were fighting a species that had spent millennia turning hostile environments into evolutionary advantages. Every world you've conquered was comfortable, Echo continued, their voice carrying across the communication array to every ship in the fleet. Temperate climates, controlled atmospheres, predictable conditions. Earth isn't comfortable, Admiral. Earth is where comfort goes to die. And we are Earth's children. As if to emphasize the point, humanity's mountain-based defense grid activated simultaneously across 6 continents. Railguns that had been hidden in peaks across the Himalayas, Andes, Rockies, Alps, and other mountain ranges opened fire on the descending alien fleet. The kinetic projectiles, launched from positions where alien ships couldn't effectively return fire, tore through hulls designed for space warfare but never tested against weapons firing from extreme altitude through chaotic atmospheric conditions. Impossible! Admiral Zefkar watched as 3 of his destroyers fell from the sky, their advanced shielding useless against projectiles that struck with the force of meteors. How can they maintain targeting accuracy through these atmospheric disturbances? The answer was simple, but alien to species that relied on sterile, controlled conditions. Human targeting systems had been designed to work in environments where wind, weather, and atmospheric chaos were constant factors. Their weapons didn't fail in extreme conditions. They had been created to excel in them. Commander Chen watched from the Siberian installation as alien ships began falling from Earth's skies like burning stars. The fleet that had come to melt humanity's ice fields was learning what happened when advanced technology met simple, brutal competence. All installations report successful engagement, Morrison announced. Enemy fleet taking significant casualties. Several ships are retreating to higher orbit. And Echo? Moving to final objectives in the Himalayan sector, the aliens have established their primary command base on Everest's north face. Chen's expression grew serious. Even for someone with Echo's modifications, assault on a fortified position at that altitude would push human endurance to its absolute limits. But if anyone could succeed in conditions that defied possibility, it was the operative who had volunteered to become something beyond normal human limitations. "Echo," she transmitted, "you are cleared for final assault. Show them what human determination looks like when there's nowhere left to retreat." High above the world, where the air was too thin for most life to exist and the cold could kill in seconds, Echo began their final approach to the alien command center. The beings who had laughed at Earth's ice fields were about to learn why humanity's most lethal operatives weren't made in comfortable conditions. They were forged in places where everything else died, and then sent to teach the galaxy what that meant.